few months ago, I uploaded a series of top 10 videos that I mentioned had begun in text form on my blog, to which if you're interested, the link is on my channel page and in the description of this video. These days, I mainly use said blog to publish compilations of short reviews of movies and video games I'm seeing/playing for the first time, and now I've decided it might be an idea to start posting those reviews on YouTube as well. Before I start uploading them regularly, like on my blog, I've decided to kick it off with a series of videos recapping all my reviews from this year so far. As you can see, I'm starting with one particular video game series, but before we get to that, there's a bit of a story behind my reviews that I feel is worth going over. If you don't care and want to skip straight to my reviews of all the Metroid games in 50 words each, here's the time code for when they begin. So for those of you who are still with me, get comfortable. Here's the story. As I mentioned, in general my reviews are exactly 50 words, but that wasn't always the case. I used to write much longer reviews of every movie I saw, both on my blog and on the website Listall. Back then I had a tendency to ramble and overwrite stuff, so I tried to keep my reviews limited to 250 words. But the more movies you see, the harder it becomes to find unique things to say. At least that's how it was for me. I found it increasingly hard to comment on movies without repeating myself, and eventually I was seeing so many movies in rapid succession that I had neither the time nor the inclination to keep up the full reviews. Nowadays it's pretty rare that anything inspires me to write at length like I used to, so I have the utmost respect for professional critics who can write in-depth reviews on a regular basis. At first I posted brief captions on Twitter to capture my initial reaction, then I'd compile those short first impressions reviews in a blog post at regular intervals. But after you-know-who took over and Twitter became a complete fiasco, I turned my back on it. Now I use Mastodon instead. Freed from the 280 character restriction, I could make my reviews slightly longer, so I settled on a nice round 50 words. And that's why I'm focusing on all my reviews from this year, because it was at the beginning of 2023 that they started following this 50-word format. Now in terms of what I'm currently reviewing, as I mentioned I cover both movies and video games. One day I made an Excel spreadsheet of all the games I own, either legitimately or as ROMs for emulators, and included a category for how I'd rate them out of 10, which put into perspective just how many I hadn't played yet. So during lockdown, I started going through them by year from oldest to newest, or rather alphabetically within each year, for the sake of filling in all the blank ratings. Well, to be more precise, I usually started playing them, got stuck like the filthy casual I am, then watched a long play on YouTube to see the rest of the game. After all, I had so many to get through that I didn't want to get bogged down on each one for days or even weeks. On the side, I also started watching other long plays of games that I didn't own as a preview to see if I'd be interested in buying them. A sort of try before you buy, if you will. Whenever another game piqued my interest, usually thanks to YouTubers like Josh Scorcher and Rabbit Luigi, I'd add a long play of it to my watch later list on YouTube. At first they were also arranged by year, and I'd go through them alongside each successive year on my own list. After all, the original goal of the project was to see the evolution of video games and which ones influenced others. But once I started working on the aforementioned top 10 videos, I put the project on hold, and eventually resumed watching the long plays on my watch later list just for the sake of it. And that's where the Metroid series comes in. One of the long plays in question was Metroid Other M, the only Metroid title I avoided buying because of its bad reputation, and I decided I might as well finish up the rest of the series while I was at it. I got as far as 2006 on my owned list. The last titles before that point were Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Zero Mission. But like I said, these initial videos are focusing on my reviews from 2023, and I couldn't very well start with Metroid Prime 3, so I decided to separate the complete series into its own video. I should also mention that all my Metroid reviews before Prime 3 were still in my Twitter days, so I had to slightly rewrite them to expand them to 50 words and keep things consistent. Now, I think the last thing I should explain is my rating system. I use 5 stars, which to me directly translates to a scale from 1 to 10. A perfect 5 stars is a full 10 out of 10, 4.5 stars is 9 out of 10, 4 stars is 8, and so on. My ratings aren't based on that title's technical merits, they simply gauge my own personal enjoyment level. A full 10 out of 10 means I absolutely adore it, I think it's outstanding. 9 out of 10 means great, 8 out of 10 means very good, 7 out of 10 means good, 6 out of 10 means not bad, 5 out of 10 means mediocre, 4 out of 10 means not good, 3 out of 10 means poor, 2 out of 10 means dire, and 1 out of 10 means atrocious. 6 out of 10 or higher is what I consider positive ratings, or what Rotten Tomatoes would call fresh. 5 out of 10 or lower is thumbs down territory, or rotten. Or here's another way to look at it. Whether my rating is 9 or a full 10, it's still in the 5-star range, which means I love it. 8 and 7 are in the 4th star, which means I like it. A rating in the 3rd star means it's okay. The 2-star range means I don't like it, and anything in the 1-star range means I hate it. I also sometimes give or take 5% depending on how passionate I am about a given rating. For example, if my score is 85%, that could be an extremely high 8 out of 10 or a low 9. It's kind of straddling the line between the two. So for these videos, I'll include both the star rating and the percentage score to take that enthusiasm into account. A low 2 out of 10 is as low as the latter goes, though. I just think of anything below 15% as what it is. 1 out of 10, bottom of the barrel, a total failure. That's what I'll always call it too, because saying 1 out of 10 somehow sounds so much more visceral than saying 10% or half a star. And now with all that out of the way, let's finally start on the mini-reviews themselves. Here are my thoughts on each installment in the Metroid series. First, the original Metroid on the NES. It pioneered games in the form of one huge maze instead of a series of linear levels. Like many franchise starters, it's a rough diamond. Later installments made drastic improvements, but it's still fun to search for the correct path, as long as you keep a map or guide handy. My rating? 4.5 stars. Metroid 2: Return of Samus, Game Boy. It's basically Metroid on Game Boy, with a far simpler goal than the first one. Just go around killing all the Metroids. Ironically, the map is even bigger this time. Am I the only one who's far more creeped out by Samus's spider ball move than any of the monsters? My rating? 3.5 stars. Super Metroid, SNES. Essentially, they took an already great game and perfected it. The opening immediately provides a superbly creepy atmosphere, and the ending is one of the best in gaming history. It's outstanding in every way. Not only the best of the series, but one of my favourite games of all time. My rating? A perfect 5 stars. Metroid Fusion, GBA. It's perhaps a little too linear, or maybe just blatant about it, and the environments aren't that memorably distinct. The story, however, certainly stands out, providing some compelling insight into Samus's past and pitting her against a corrupted duplicate of herself. It's genuinely chilling whenever the SAX is close by. My rating? 4 stars. Now for the Metroid Prime Trilogy, which I played, or at least tried to, as part of the 3-in-1 bundle on the Wii. Metroid Prime. The series' first 3D game, and the first-person shooter style doesn't suit the brand nearly as well as the 2D games. I can't speak for the GameCube original, but the Wii controls are baffling, your movement makes it feel unbearably slow, and there's no apparent story to explain your progress. My rating? 2 stars. Metroid Prime 2: Echoes. It's much better than the first game because of its clearly defined narrative and goals, thanks Luminoff, but Metroid as a first-person shooter still isn't my thing. Of course, it's defined by the parallel dimension and Dark Samus. One great new power-up is the Seeker missiles that allow multiple targeting. My rating? 3 stars. Metroid Prime 3: Corruption, the first one actually designed for the Wii. I still find the controls awkward, so overall I'm not a fan of the Prime Trilogy. That said, I think this third entry has the best overall story. Plus, it brings the core Metroid universe into clearer focus, with Samus accompanied by the Galactic Federation and some other bounty hunters. My rating? 3 stars. Metroid Zero Mission, GBA. An absolutely stellar remake. Thanks to adding a map, easily distinguishable rooms, and extra power-ups, it's almost on par with Super Metroid. Then, after the familiar ending, it adds a brand new section on the space pirate mothership, which ramps up the stakes by removing Samus's power suit and weapons. My rating? 5 stars. Metroid Other M, Wii. From a gameplay standpoint, I'd almost rather play this than the Prime Trilogy, but it's not worth suffering through the abysmal writing. The script constantly states the obvious. A 6-year-old would have a better sense of subtlety. It tries to give Samus personality, but just comes off as character assassination. My rating, 1.5 stars. Metroid Samus Returns, 3DS. It gives the familiar side-scrolling gameplay a 3D makeover, and easily trumps the original Metroid 2 with improved combat and new abilities, including a melee attack that allows you to parry charging enemies. And if the series weren't already compared enough to Alien, the Zeta Metroid's design isn't remotely subtle. My rating, 4 stars. Metroid Dread, Switch. It has a similar control scheme to Samus Returns, but makes the experience feel even more refreshing and fun. Its defining feature is stealth sections involving the Emmy, robots against which evasion is your only hope. It's another solid entry in the Metroid series, easily the best since Zero Mission. My rating, 4.5 stars. And finally, just for a bonus, AM2R Return of Samus, PC. A fan creation that captures the look and feel of classic Metroid splendidly. The music is great, and it follows the same premise as the original Metroid 2, but creates a whole new experience with unique areas and bosses. To be honest, I enjoy it much more than Samus Returns. My rating, 4 stars. So that's the Metroid series. There are more sets of 50-word reviews to come, so if you enjoyed this first one, feel free to drop a like and subscribe if you want to see more.